from the broadcast center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus. This is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, I'm Emma Albert, and these are your news and sports headlines to 12 o'clock. Updates on the Gastown fire. All residents but one have been accounted for after the blaze that began yesterday around 10 a.m. sent 5 people to hospital, 2 of them in serious condition. Vancouver Fire and Rescue Services and city officials say 60 firefighters were battling the fire at the Winters Hotel building in the Gastown neighborhood. Last night, the city was working to find housing for residents displaced due to the blaze. The cause of the fire is still unknown. Mayor Kennedy Stewart, as well as various Vancouver officials, will be speaking to media regarding yesterday's fire. Updates on events in New York. At least 10 people were shot and 6 others injured in Brooklyn this morning after a gunman filled a rush-hour subway train with smoke and opened fire. There were no life-threatening injuries. However, police are still searching for the shooter. Police Commissioner Keechant Sewell says multiple smoke devices were found on the scene, but none were explosive.
And this is not being investigated as an act of terrorism at this time.
The attack began on a subway train that pulled into the 36th Street station in the borough's Sunset Park neighborhood. Riders on the SkyTrain will soon be able to experience a brand new technology on it. Hugh Perkich has the story.
Advertising on SkyTrain is about to get technical as they introduce a new system that allows companies to display full-motion videos for those traveling through the Dunsmuir Tunnel. The system, built with local company AdTrack Media, will showcase ads using vertical LED lights that detect trains and display video automatically. And the system could be used on other lines on the SkyTrain system. Steve Vanagas, Vice President of TransLink, says there are plans in the works for this new system.
You will see this technology installed in many other parts of our system in the coming months.
The system will begin use within the coming weeks. Hugh Perkich, 1680, The Crow.
We now go live to reporter Hugh Perkich. Hugh, where in the tunnel has the technology been installed?
Well, Emma, the new LED advertisements have been installed between Waterfront and Burrard Station for customers traveling eastbound towards King George and Production Way to University.
And will this be installed on other parts of the system?
Yes, there are plans to install the system on the westbound portion of the tunnel between Stadium Chinatown and Granville Station, as well as other lines in the near future.
All right, thanks, Hugh. The City of Vancouver says an affordable housing fund for the city may be seeing a boost. According to last year's data, the empty house tax is showing a decline in vacant property and a doubling of revenue for declared homes to add to an affordable housing fund. Vancouver tripled the tax rate to 3% last year, and a city statement says that brought in $32 million from homes declared vacant. Mayor Kennedy Stewart says the decrease in vacant properties means more homes for locals. Stewart says Vancouver has one of Canada's lowest vacancy rates at well below 2%. An announcement made at Capilano University this morning looks to benefit students throughout North Vancouver and the surrounding area. Our reporter James Parisi has the story.
Local politicians and Cap University President Paul Dangerfield are looking to put an end to North Vancouver's student housing issue. North Vancouver made a significant investment in student housing and dining at Capilano University itself. Dangerfield says this project will give CapU a true university experience.
This housing complex represents a pivotal transformation to the north end of the campus, on our main campus, that will create a vibrant center for our students and our student life on the campus.
The project includes 362 new student beds and a 250-seat dining hall on campus. The $58.2 million project is part of a wider 10-year operation to add 8,000 new student beds across BC. James Parisi, 1680 The Crow.
On to national news, Canada's chief public health officer says a number of factors are combining to cause rising levels of COVID-19 activity across the country. Dr. Theresa Tam says the loosening of public health restrictions, an increase in our in-person contacts, some waning of immunity, and the spread of the more transmissible BA2 variant have all likely contributed to the rising levels of infection. Tam says multiple indicators, from average daily case counts to lab test positivity and wastewater monitoring, indicate increasing transmission in recent weeks.
Unfortunately, we're now beginning to see rising severity trends as well. While some degree of increased transmission was expected, we are once again reminded that we need to maintain a vaccine plus approach with a layering of precautions to help lower infection rates, protect vulnerable populations, and dampen the impact on our health system.
Tam is again stressing that a booster dose of COVID vaccine offers more protection than 2 doses. A severe storm is expected to hit Saskatchewan. The provincial government is encouraging people to prepare. The storm is expected to bring 50 centimeters of snow to the southeast side of the province. The Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency is asking residents to download its emergency Sask Alert app and to have a 72-hour preparedness kit in case of power outages during the storm. The kit should have water, food, a first aid kit, a flashlight, and a wind-up or battery-powered radio. Environment Canada has issued a blizzard warning and says the storm is expected to start tonight and last until Friday morning. On to national news. Canada's Chief Public Health Officer says a number of factors are combining to cause. It's expected there will be more money for healthcare in today's Manitoba budget during pre-budget announcements last week. The province committed $15 million for personal care homes and funding to hire forensic nurse examiners. Premier Heather Stephenson has said there will be other healthcare measures in the 2022 fiscal plan as well. It's the first budget since Stephenson replaced former Premier Brian Pallister, who resigned last year. In international news, Oklahoma's governor has signed a bill to make abortion illegal. Reporter Alex Stone has more.
In what its author calls the strongest pro-life legislation in the country, Oklahoma is effectively outlawing abortion. Governor Kevin Stitt signing the bill that makes it a felony to perform an abortion, punishable by up to 10 years in prison. The only exception is to save the life of the mother. It's a bill that will likely now get caught up in the courts. It's set to take effect 90 days after the Oklahoma legislature adjourns next month. Similar laws in other states in recent years have been ruled unconstitutional. Alex Stone, EBC News.
New York Lieutenant Governor Brian Benjamin has been arrested in a federal corruption investigation. Authorities say the Democrat was arrested on charges including bribery and falsification of records. Benjamin is a former state senator from Harlem who joined the administration of Governor Kathy Hochul in September. Hochul was asked about the arrest at a press conference for a shooting in Brooklyn.
We'll have a statement out there. I've not had a chance to speak to him. I was doing media interviews this morning.
Benjamin pleaded not guilty at an initial appearance in Manhattan federal court. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged the EU to step up economic sanctions against Russia, arguing the Kremlin feels it can continue the invasion of Ukraine because of signals from some European nations. Reporter Charles de Ledesma has more.
Ukraine's president has told lawmakers in Lithuania, a former Soviet republic that's now an EU and NATO member, the Kremlin was sure of its impunity in Ukraine. Zelensky urges sanctions on all Russian banks and calls for Europe to refuse or at least significantly limit usage of Russian energy imports. As well, he says an investigation by combined Ukrainian and European authorities into alleged war crimes committed by the Russians was still ongoing. Almost every day, he says, new mass graves of killed people are found. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson's office say he and Treasury Chief Rishi Sunak will be fined by police for breaching COVID-19 regulations following allegations of lockdown parties at government offices. Johnson's wife, Carrie, will also be fined. The Partygate scandal has seen dozens of politicians and officials investigated over allegations that the government flouted its own pandemic restrictions. Johnson has denied any wrongdoing, but he is alleged to have been at several of the dozen events in his 10 Downing Street office and other government buildings that are being investigated by the police. Moving on to sports, the Canucks are facing off against the Vegas Golden Knights tonight. This will be the third meeting for these teams this month, but if the Canucks even want a sliver of a chance at playoffs, they would need to snag a win in tonight's game. As well, tonight is the Canucks for Kids Telethon, where proceeds will go to charities across BC that support children and families. This will be the first in-person Canucks for Kids event since 2020. Hitting over to baseball news, the Blue Jays were greeted with a flurry of boos from the stand in yesterday's game, but despite the negative crowd, the Blue Jays still defeated New York 3-0. The Jays face off once again against the Yankees later today. For the weather update, it's currently raining cats and dogs outside with a side of hail, so keep an umbrella and jacket handy since we are still seeing a low of 4 degrees today. That was your news and sports update for 12 o'clock. I'm Emma Albert, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Hey there! Welcome to Companion Call. I'm Tiger Ann.
And I'm Sadie Chung. You're listening to 1680 The Crow. Ramadan is a holy month of fasting, introspection, and prayer for Muslims. It's celebrated as the month during which Muhammad received the initial revelations of the Quran, the holy book for Muslims. Now, today we hope to learn about and highlight 3 areas of discussion: the rules and traditions of Ramadan, how schools and workplaces can accommodate Muslims during the month, and what it's like taking part in Canada versus the Middle East. Ari Azez is the former president of the BCIT Muslim Students Association. He graduated just last year. He's also a regular volunteer with Ask a Muslim Canada, which is a local organization focused on hosting open discussions and distributing free books about Islam. We also have Burnaby Mountain Secondary student Menna Khadir joining us today. Menna is a Muslim student from Syria who immigrated to Canada in 2019. So we'll start with segment 1, the rules and traditions of Ramadan.
Let's start with you, Ari. And first of all, can you also tell us if were you born here or did you grow up, have a different background?
Yeah, actually, I'm from East Vancouver, but I've moved to Surrey with my family about 16 years ago. So aside from a year that I lived in Calgary, which I will never repeat, I'm pretty much a Lower Mainland boy. But we do visit the Middle East. We're from Kurdistan, which is a region in North Iraq. So we visit every few years in the summer and just reconnect with our roots and kind of visit family and everything, right?
Yeah, lovely.
So how do you celebrate the traditions of Ramadan?
Right, that's a great question. I mean, it's important to note that unlike a lot of holidays that we have here in North America, the month of Ramadan isn't necessarily a celebration. It's actually more of an act of worship, right? And the celebration is a day that we call Eid, which comes at the very end of Ramadan. And it's basically a way to kind of congratulate yourself and everyone around you for completing a month of devotion and obedience to your Creator and spiritual refinement. To answer your question more specifically, the month of Ramadan, it's the ninth month of the Islamic lunar calendar, and in it, Muslims are essentially commanded to, number 1, refrain from food and drink as long as the sun is out, right? So when it's night, we can eat and drink. It's not like we're all month just like starving, right? So we do replenish ourselves at night. And it's not just food and drink, like people think. You also have to refrain from intercourse if you are married with your spouse during the daylight hours. And there's also general things that we should refrain from year long, but it's emphasized during Ramadan, which is also, being mindful of your language, the things that you look at, the things that you are doing during the day, the places that you're going to, and just generally how you're spending your time. You are much better off trying to be productive and working on, self-improvement than to just kind of watch Netflix all day and, not leave your bed.
Totally. Yeah, that's beautiful. Did you have anything to add to that, Menna?
My opinion was actually similar to his, because Ramadan is not a celebration necessarily. It's more like a month of worship and forgiveness, where you can build your faith in God more, pray, read Quran, which is their holy book. You also fast, not just from drinks and food. You also fast from lying, from saying bad words, and etc., etc. So it's not a celebration necessarily. We do celebrate it, but it's not like a celebration. It's more like a month of worship.
Yeah, totally. That's really interesting. And sticking along the lines of fasting, depending on your circumstances, does everyone need to fast, or are there different exceptions?
There are exceptions that are outlined in the Quran, especially in the 2nd chapter called Surah Al-Baqarah. And in particular, children that have not reached the age of puberty, they're exempt. Also, for example, women that are breastfeeding, women that are pregnant, women also that are on their periods, and anyone that is sick or elderly as well. You can see that there's different categories. And the general concept within our religion is, as the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, is that you should not harm others and you shouldn't let harm be done. So we see these exemptions as God's mercy towards all of us as humans. And he knows that, some of us are weak and we can't necessarily finish it, whether because of our age or our health conditions at the time. And so these people are exempt. And if you are from these conditions that are exempt, except for the children, then you're told to just make up the day at a later date in the year if you're able to. And if not, then you should try to at least feed a poor person as expiation.
Wow, that's super interesting.
Nana, what do you think?
Yeah, what he said is correct, but I just want to mention something else. So my friends in school always think that Ramadan actually comes on a specific month, but no, Ramadan doesn't come on a fixed date in the year. It actually comes in a different month every year because I guess it depends on the moon. When the moon becomes like a crescent, I guess, they know that Ramadan should like begin. Yeah, that's what I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
Because my friends get confused a lot. Like, when does it start? Does it like come on a different month every year? And I was like, yeah, I just explained that for them.
Yeah.
That is really cool because in Chinese New Year it's the same way. We go by the lunar calendar, and it's a different date every year. Quite interesting.
That's a good point you raise. Yeah, and the Islamic calendar is also based upon the lunar calendar, and so to be specific, the lunar calendar has only 354 days in the year instead of 365, which the lunar does. So every year we actually shift back 11 days. So a few years ago we were fasting in the summer, and it was kind of hot and about 18 hours every day. But now every year we're shifting closer and closer towards the winter, and it's getting a bit easier.
There you go.
So how do you guys break your fast? You talk about, Ramadan is like the period for Allah. And tell me more about Eid. That is like more like a celebration, right? When everyone comes together and break their fast. What is that like? And can you compare? I don't know if you have ever celebrated, or went through Ramadan in the Middle East. Are there any differences between here and abroad? I guess Mena can definitely answer this question. So why don't we start with Mena?
So yeah, it is very different from the Middle East because that Eid is it is a 3-day celebration that comes right after Ramadan, where we break our fasting, and the celebration actually begins by going to the Eid prayers in the morning, and then after the prayers we go to our grandparents' house, greet everyone, and then elders start giving money and treats to like kids. That was my favorite part, to be honest. It's still my favorite. And then it would just be like hang out, travel, go to the amusement park. It is like a fun celebration. It's just like Christmas for Christians. Eid is like Christmas for Muslims. It is that fun for us.
Wow, definitely something to look forward to.
Yeah. And my mom used to do like a specific, tradition that no one else does. So every time in Eid, she used to put a gift under my and my sister pillows. So we would wake up the next day and actually find a gift under our pillows. So
oh, that's cute. Oh, yeah. That is exciting. And does she still do that?
I mean, we got old right now. So
darn it. And what about you, Ari? Do you have any kind of traditions you do yourself?
Yeah, it's really interesting hearing Mina's experiences back home. I think in the Middle East, it's definitely a lot more fun when you have everyone, like literally every single person celebrating with you. Whereas here, you kind of got to take the day off of school or work to go celebrate. But once you get into that crowd, it's definitely a big thing. In general, there are certain so to say, like rituals that everyone follows that we have in common that's like based in the religion. So for example, on the day of Eid, you'd wake up and you would take a shower or a bath, and you'd wear like some really clean clothes and put on some nice perfume. And we would start off with a community prayer outdoors typically. And so I live in Surrey, so we used to go to Bear Creek Park every year. And it's a really different environment because it's one thing to pray like in your place of worship, but to now do it outdoors and like the grass and the trees and everyone's around you, it's really cool.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and so after that, that's typically when literally the eating and the drinking begins, because this holiday in specific at the end of Ramadan, it is known as like the holiday of the feast. because you just went like 30 days of like restraining and kind of practicing your self-control. And so now is a chance for everyone to go out and to celebrate. And we have a specific charity that everyone is obligated to pay, regardless if you're young or old, or even for children. And typically, like the father would pay on behalf of their whole family. And this charity goes to all the poor families to ensure that everyone has enough funds to eat and drink during these days, so nobody's left out.
Oh, that's great. And so, forgive me if I pronounce this wrong. I'm hearing about suhoor and that there's different recipes. Can you tell me about that and what exactly that is?
Maybe I'll pass it over to Mina. She probably has more recipes than me.
Yeah, Mina, let us know.
Okay, sure. So for suhoor, we prefer to eat something light so we don't get thirsty or hungry the next day. So I heard that bananas and yogurt actually like reduce thirst and hunger. So what I like to do is like an oatmeal recipe, which I was just oatmeal and bananas, honey, yogurt. That's my favorite for support. It's very light and I don't get thirsty or hungry the next day. So
good thinking, strategic
cool.
planning.
I think that's all we have for the first segment. And now let's move on to the second segment. Ari and Mena, Ari, you're the BCIT Muslim Association ex-president, so you're very involved on campus, and Mena is a high school student. So how can schools and workplaces, how can they accommodate Muslim people during Ramadan? I know the BCIT offers a prayer room. Maybe, Ari, can you talk about that?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. And it's quite interesting because the way that workplaces and schools could accommodate for Muslims during Ramadan is the same way that they could accommodate throughout the rest of the year, which is, we're fairly low maintenance. And all we really need is that, the same way that a lot of classes offer a 10-minute break for you to go out and grab a coffee or have a smoke, a lot of Muslims usually take that 10-minute break to go out and pray, to just take that moment to reconnect with their creator and take a bit of a break from the world, because there's always a lot going on and it's easy to get distracted. So it's great that, as you mentioned, BCIT has a prayer room just above the student association, and for a lot of other schools or workplaces that don't already have a prayer room, you don't actually need anything special, just a clean place. As the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, the entire earth is a place to worship. So you can be outdoors in the park, you can be, in a closet somewhere in your bedroom. You don't really have like a designated special thing that you need. In fact, when I used to study at Kwantlen University, they had an empty classroom that they just laid down some carpet and they said, here, this is your new prayer room. And we've been using that for years now. So yeah, just being mindful of, the fact that as Muslims, we do have prayer times throughout the day. They're evenly spaced out, and typically throughout the day, it's only once in the summer that we would have to take a break, and in the winter, because the days are much shorter, usually about twice. So just be mindful of the prayer times. Understand if your student comes 10 minutes late to class or to work, especially on Fridays, because on Fridays we have a community prayer that is obligatory upon every Muslim male. And number one, being mindful of the time, and number two, if you don't already have a space, try and accommodate and come up with a prayer place.
Yeah, totally. And Mena, on that note, as we said, you're in high school. So do you feel like accommodated there? You might participate in PE or any kind of physical things. And I can imagine that taking a toll on you, especially when you're fasting. So are there ways that they can accommodate that? Are there expectations, or should there be?
Yeah, as you said, PE class is a real issue. I don't know if you guys know, but PE class from grade 8 to 10 is mandatory in high school. So last year, I had PE class every day while I was fasting, and we used to do all that hard work, when I was fasting. So I used to go back home almost dead. So I think schools should make PE classes optionals for Muslims during Ramadan. I also think that, so let me tell you, last year also, I went on a hike with my teacher, with my class, okay? And then the teacher started offering us Timbits. I don't know if you guys know Timbits.
Yeah.
And I actually thanked him. Like I said, I don't eat right now because I'm fasting.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if he was like, he understood me. But then like a few minutes later, he came back again and offered me Timbits again. I don't know if he did that on purpose. I'm not sure, but that wasn't nice of him.
Yeah.
To be honest, he offered me Timbits like 3 times, and I told him that I'm fasting. So I don't know if that was on purpose. I'm assuming it's not, to be honest. But like, just avoid offering food for Muslim students. That's also another thing.
It's like they're tempting you almost, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to play something now, and just for our viewers, just because I know for me, I've never heard of this, and I'm sure a lot of other people haven't. I'm going to play the azan, which is the Muslim call to prayer, as I'm sure you know. Is that okay with you?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
So yeah, that is super beautiful. And when you're at school, when you're from work, like how do you get a reminder that it's time to prayer?
I actually have an app for that.
Ooh.
I set this app where like I'm staying, but like let's say I'm staying now in Burnaby. I set this app that I'm staying in Burnaby, and then every time like how do I say it? But it just like the azan comes up.
Yeah, and it alerts you. That's super cool that they make apps like that. And do you use kind of the same, Ari, or is there a different way that you go by?
I think pretty much everyone uses the app now. In the Muslim countries, they actually do the call to prayer live because there's so many mosques all around the city, and they also have permits with the government to use the mega speakers and make sure that the noise gets heard. Being here, you can't really have that same permit, so yeah, we have our push notifications on our app, and if you have your location services turned on, even if you're traveling, it basically calculates like when the sun is going to rise or when it's going to set, and it'll just boop, give you a little notification. You can choose to actually set so that your notification gives you like a pre-recorded adhan.
Okay.
Or you can just have it like a silent one. I'm at work, I don't want to like freak out my coworkers, so I just have the silent one on. My mom keeps it on loud, so she'll be in Walmart and it'll just go off. So
I love it.
Has their own preferences.
I love it. Well, I think we should move on to our last segment, and that is just about what it's like taking part in Ramadan in Canada versus the Middle East. So, Mena, maybe you can talk about what the difference was for you having Ramadan in Syria and what's it like now in Canada.
Yeah, it is really different. So, back there, we used to all gather to eat what we call iftar together, like as a family, and then like watch series together, pray together. It used to be much more fun, to be honest. Also, like back in Egypt, I used to, when I want to break my fasting and eat iftar, I used to like hear azan from the mosque itself, not just from the app, not just like an app notification. So it is really different. It's much more fun in the middle. And also, but back there, before Ramadan comes, neighbors, like all neighbors, decorate the neighborhood, their houses. So it feels fun, like just going into a neighborhood that is full of decorations, and it feels fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure you can all relate. And then I think just a final question for both of you.
Both of you, this might be a little bit deeper. So do you think Canada needs to adapt a little bit more to Muslim traditions, especially on Canadian soil? What do you guys think?
Being here in Canada is definitely a big blessing. Religious freedom is something that we all get to benefit from and enjoy. We're all free to, dress the way that we want, to worship the way that we want. And it's not necessarily something that you have to do in private. Like, we have the ability to come here, even like on this podcast, and we can talk freely about our beliefs and share our thoughts with one another. So overall, like, I think Canada is definitely doing a great job.
Good. Well, that's all the time we have.
Sorry. Yeah,
Thank you
that's all the
so much for,
joining
sharing.
us and educating the public. I feel like we learned a lot, but once this podcast is published, people are going to learn a lot more.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. So once again, thank you both.
Awesome. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I'm Sadie Chung.
And I'm Tiger Ann.
You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Ramadan Mubarak.
Well, hello there. I'm Kiara Collins.
And I'm Asta Pandi Kanan.
And today we're going to talk about the M word.
The M word. Kiara, you want to tell our listeners what the M word actually is?
Do I have to?
Yes, you do.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Loud and proud, Kiara.
Menstruation?
Louder, prouder, own it.
Menstruation!
Yes, today we're going to chat about menstruation. In early April 2019, the government of British Columbia announced the United Way Period Promise Research Project at United Way of the Lower Mainland's office in Burnaby, BC. It is a joint venture between United Way and BC's Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction. They basically went on and did a research and found that a lot of people in BC were very much affected by menstrual poverty. You must be thinking, what is menstrual poverty?
Yeah, you're right. What is that?
So menstrual poverty is understood to be the lack of access to menstrual products and facilities to use them safely. It is a chronic challenge for individuals or families who cannot afford menstrual products.
So, what do people do when they don't have menstrual products? It's 2021. Has no one stepped in to do anything about this?
Well, the government of British Columbia has approved a period promise campaign with the United Way in the Lower Mainland. And Neil Adolph, the provincial director of the Labour participation heading the period promise campaign, can answer your question.
In 2018, we decided to change the name from Tampon Tuesday to Period Promise because we started to do more work, not just on the collection and distribution of menstrual products, but also we wanted to do more work around policy and advocacy on the importance of access to free menstrual products in community spaces.
Wait, so how exactly does this work? Like, pads and tampons don't exactly just grow on trees.
Well, there is a collective of people working behind this. I'm sure Neil can speak to that.
It is a fundraising campaign, but most of the funding that we receive from donors for this particular campaign at United Way goes towards purchasing product. So the vast majority of dollars that are sent and directed to United Way for the Period Promise campaign, we convert into buying tampons, pads, underwear, cups, whatever it is kind of product that people are requesting, which is a bit of a shift because when we first started the campaign, there was no financial donation process. We weren't asking people for money. We were asking people just for product itself. What happened is we started to realize that, first year we collected 30,000 menstrual products. The second year we collected 220,000 menstrual products. So that's huge growth between one year to the next. And when we started to figure out the valuation of those menstrual products, basically how much does 220,000 menstrual products actually cost donors? It works out to like close to $50,000. But we could, through different kinds of relationships with producers, actually purchase more than that with $50,000. So that's when we started to pivot around asking for financial donations so that we could become a centralized purchaser and as a result increase our potential impact in community. And then we've had a few other funders and opportunities kind of pop up. So in 2019, the provincial government through the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction provided us with a pretty sizable research grant to do some really thorough research into what period poverty looks like in British Columbia. And then we do ask for sponsorship. So one of our major sponsors on this campaign, and they've been with us for about 4 years now, is Pacific Blue Cross. And they provide us with the financial support to cover a lot of our costs internally to actually do the staffing work. Like, how do we actually pay the people that are doing the work? How do we make sure that we're keeping the lights on so that we can do the work?
So, Neil, who's the most affected by this?
Indigenous populations consistently indicated in British Columbia that they had serious challenges accessing or purchasing menstrual products at a rate almost twice in some situations as high as the non-Indigenous population, which is pretty drastic. The other population that indicated really high challenges was people living with disabilities. Less than a high school education or less also struggled. And people who were making an annual household income of $40,000 or less really struggled. So not surprisingly, across those demographics, there's an intersection. A lot of those same respondents are kind of from the same cross demographics, if you were.
So the thing that's still not making sense to me is we have the campaign, we have donations, and we have people doing the legwork. But how are we still in this issue?
That's because we have to deal with the core problem of the system being rigged. The patriarchy hasn't helped us. Most people in power are non-menstruators who don't understand menstruating people's problems.
It's largely men that are making these decisions. And largely men who have never menstruated in their life. And I'm one of those people who has never menstruated. And if it hasn't happened now, it's probably not going to happen. So my guess is that most men like myself don't get it. And they don't understand how anxiety inducing it can be when you are menstruating and you don't have access to the products that you need. They don't understand how you don't have control over it. It just happens. And when it's happening, it's happening. They don't understand that there's a lot of stigma and a lot of shame in asking for help around this. So people prefer to stay at home instead of ask for help. It's men's ignorance, I think, that has really led to the position that we're in, where we now have to advocate for it.
It's really cool and funny that Neil mentions that, because I've been surrounded by way too many men who just do not understand what periods are actually like, be it the pain or the stigma. And they almost treat me like I'm extremely weak and, untouchable. Have you ever felt that, Kiara?
I always just sometimes get, oh, you're on your period? Great. I'll be in the other room. I don't want to deal with your emotional mess.
Jesus, why are men like this? But anyways, do you think that sometimes men think that because we are also in a lot of excruciating pain and that might come off a little bit dreadful? Wouldn't it be great if we all just loved our periods?
Wait, loved your period?
Yeah. Like, imagine just being happy when it comes and, I got my period, yay! Instead of, ugh, I got my period.
So I think it's funny that you mention this because I recently just came across a reproductive educator who's located here in BC.
Wait, is it tagged to your car?
Ding ding. Yes, it is.
Oh my God, I love her work.
She knows what she's doing. And I think the angle that she's going at is really interesting.
Wait a minute. Did you get a chance to read her thing about worldwide love for periods?
Yes, I did. And I even went a step further and got a clip about her talking about it.
Stop it.
Yeah, I did. You want to hear?
I want to hear.
Let's check it out.
Be able to love their periods, get excited about it every single time would be wonderful. Similarly, with anybody who doesn't menstruate or who identifies as a non-menstruator, to still love on periods, again, be excited about them, be interested in learning more, whether it's for their partner or their sibling or their parent or their friend, just to be interested in it. Because I feel like if we can get everybody back to living cyclically, as opposed to this understanding that linear growth or exponential growth and productivity is the way that we're supposed to move forward as a species. If we can shift away from that, I feel that so many struggles that we're going through as a species would just come down, which in turn would support projects like decolonization, like gender equity, or at least gender equality. So I think all good things could come with a worldwide love of periods. Yeah.
So, Kiara, how are you feeling about the M word now?
Pretty good, actually.
Yeah, you want to scream it with me?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Menstruation! Yes! I am glad that we're on board with this.
Yeah, I feel like I got my head wrapped around this thing now.
Yeah.
So, what are we going to talk about now?
We're going to talk about what the Period Promise campaign has inspired everyone around them in BC to do. For example, beginning this fall, students and other members of the University of Northern British Columbia community have access to free menstrual products, and that was inspired by the United Way's Period Promise campaign. Student leaders lobbied the university's administration to begin a pilot project to supply free menstrual products on campus. How cool is that?
It's honestly super cool. But isn't UBC also doing that?
Yeah, I think it's with Free Periods Canada, a grassroots organization founded by UBC students, no?
Yeah, since 2019, building operations installed menstrual dispensers in approximately 300 washrooms across campus, offering free menstrual products. Towards the end of 2021, additional dispensers will be added across the university.
That's amazing. I wish they had that during my time at UBC. But you know what? It's going to create that shift in the mentality of everyone around menstruation. And the fact that products are going to be freely available in schools just means that the attendance of students is just going to go up. How amazing is that? No one's going to be missing school anymore.
I think honestly that when this does get implemented in schools, community centers, we're going to see a lot more people participating in life. That's deserved.
Oh, 100%. I can't wait till the day where the government just makes period products completely free for everyone, be it at home or in public institutions.
Yeah, it honestly sucks having to pay for something just because I'm a menstruator. Like, I can get condoms and lube for free, but I can't get a tampon or pad.
Yeah, but Kiara, think about it. There is a silver lining. The United Way Period Promise campaign has done a lot of great work.
Yeah, I know you're right. I know that of June of this year, they wanted to collect 500,000 period products. And before June, they surpassed that by 60,000 products.
That's absolutely amazing. And not just the menstrual product side of things, but the campaign has made it easier to talk about the realities of period poverty. The campaign has shown light to the fact that pads, cups, and tampons are expensive and a necessity. With the Period Promise campaign, the barrier is coming down, and in time, period poverty will be a thing of the past.
You know, Asta, today as a menstruator, I learned a lot.
Definitely, Kiara. Me too. I think a lot of what we heard from Neil and Tak was very, very enlightening. And all I want to say is that to all our menstruators
and menstrual allies,
that we should all be loud
and proud
of our period.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, I'm McKenna O'Neill with your 1 o'clock update. The BC Coroner's reports 174 more lives have been lost to illicit drug toxicity in February. The total number of deaths since BC was declared a health emergency 6 years ago is now past 9,400. February is the 17th straight month in which more than 150 people have died. Nearly 3/4 of the people who have died from illicit drugs this year have been between the ages of 30 to 59. The data shows that 78% were men. Fire crews remain at the scene of the Vancouver fire that began yesterday morning in a Gastown heritage building that sent 5 people to hospital, 2 of them in serious condition. All but one resident has been accounted for, but neighbors have stated this tenant is often away. 4 people have since been released from hospital. Fire Chief Karen Fry says the cause is still unknown and is unrelated to a fire that occurred Friday. It looks to have started on the 2nd floor, and the building is likely to be demolished. Canada is making the switch to electric vehicles. With carbon emissions contributing to climate change, some BC projects plan to utilize electric vehicles in the long term. Our reporter David Natalini has more.
This week, Trudeau announced that Canada would be making the switch to electric vehicles by 2035. Clean BC is funding local projects aiming to reduce the province's annual carbon emissions. Co-founder of Moment Energy, Gabe Suarez, says more electric vehicles means an increase in reusable batteries.
And what we want to do is create that circular economy so that we can actually make sure these batteries don't end up in landfills and don't get wasted with all the remaining energy that's in them.
Suarez's company will repurpose these batteries into rechargeable storage systems. Suarez says he hopes to see BC become the largest Second Life battery ecosystem in North America. David Natalini, 1680 The Crow.
2 Victoria-based paramedics are heading to Poland to finalize the sale and delivery of an ambulance stocked full of supplies for their counterparts in Ukraine. Advanced Care paramedics Andrew Mills and Melissa Sims says they sprang into action after seeing images of paramedics and first responders being targeted by Russian troops in the war-torn country. They built a website and raised enough money to buy a service-ready ambulance from a private seller in Poland, and are working with a mobile hospital there to secure delivery. At least 10 people were shot and 6 others injured in Brooklyn, New York this morning when a gunman filled a rush-hour subway train with smoke and opened fire. Acting Fire Commissioner Laura Kavanaugh says quick thinking by first responders saved lives.
We were able to treat 16 patients. 10 of those patients are suffering from gunshot wounds at this time, and 5 of them are in critical but stable condition in our local hospitals.
NYPD says the gunman who fled was wearing a construction vest and gas mask. They are also looking for a U-Haul truck with Arizona license plates in connection. Sunny days are headed to Crave, the new Canadian home of Sesame Street on streaming. The Bell Media-owned service says it has signed an agreement with Sesame Workshop to bring episodes of the educational children's television series to the streaming platform starting Friday. And on to sports. Tonight, the Canucks are hosting the Golden Knights. The Knights have won 8 of their last 11 games. If the Canucks want a chance at the playoffs, they will need a win at tonight's game. And the Toronto Blue Jays have won their first road game of the baseball season with a 3-0 victory over the New York Yankees last night. Blue Jays manager Charlie Montoya says the key to winning anything this season is simple.
Pitching and defense is going to win games in this league because it's tough to hit every day, and you're going to face tough lineups, and you cannot give that team or any team in the American League any chances, any second chances, that's for sure.
Tonight, the Blue Jays will face off against the Yankees once again at 4 p.m. The WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelberg has expressed concern for Phoenix Mercury player Brittany Griner, who continues to be detained in Russia since arriving at a Moscow airport in mid-February. Russian authorities said a search of her luggage revealed a vape cartridge that allegedly contained cannabis oil, which could carry a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison. Engelbert says the league is working very hard to help bring Griner back to the United States.
Certainly, we're trying everything we can, every angle, working through with her legal representation, her agent, elected leaders, the administration, just everybody in our ecosystem to try and find ways to get her home safely and as quickly as we can.
And on to today's weather, we can expect cloudy skies with a high of 8. Rain will continue through the rest of the day with a mix of hail. The rest of the week, we can expect a mix of sun and clouds through till Sunday. This has been your 1 o'clock news. I'm McKenna O'Neill, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.